The architecture of automating excellence, a psychological analysis of habit formation and dissolution. Our lives, when viewed in panoramic scope, are largely a composite of our habits. As Aristotle famously and perhaps apocryphally noted, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. From the moment we wake to the moment we sleep, nearly 40 to 50% of our daily actions are not the result of conscious decisions, but rather the unfolding of automated scripts stored deep within our biology. For the modern American, navigating a landscape of high-calorie food abundance, digital distraction, and the relentless pressure of productivity, understanding the psychological and neurobiological underpinnings of habit is not just self-help, it is a survival mechanism. This analysis explores the machinery of the habit loop, the neural architecture that supports it, and evidence-based strategies for rewiring our behavior. The neurobiology of autopilot, why we have habits. To understand how to change a habit, one must first respect why they exist. Evolutionarily, habits are an energy-saving device. The human brain, while comprising only about 2% of the body weight, consumes roughly 20% of the body's energy supply. Conscious decision-making, located primarily in the prefrontal cortex, is metabolically expensive. It requires focus, executive function, and willpower. To conserve energy for novel threats or complex problem-solving, the brain seeks to offload repetitive tasks to the basal ganglia, an ancient structure located deep within the brain, often referred to as the reptilian brain. The shift from gray to white matter. When you first learn a task, say parallel parking a car, your prefrontal cortex is highly active. You are hyper-aware of the mirrors, the steering wheel angle, and the gas pedal. However, as you repeat the action, the mental activity shifts away from the prefrontal cortex and settles into the basal ganglia. This process is driven by long-term potentiation, LTP. The famous neuroscientific axiom, originally coined by Donald Hebb, states, "Neurons that fire together, wire together." Every time a specific sequence of neurons fires in a specific order, the synaptic connections between them strengthen. Eventually, the behavior becomes chunked. The brain identifies a trigger and runs the entire sequence automatically, without conscious oversight. This is why you can drive home from work and arrive without remembering a single turn. Your basal ganglia was driving while your prefrontal cortex was thinking about dinner. The habit loop, deconstructing the algorithm. Psychologists and neuroscientists, popularized by authors like Charles Duhigg in The Power of Habit and James Clear in Atomic Habits, have identified a distinct neurological loop that governs every habit. Understanding this loop is the master key to behavior change. 1. The cue, the trigger. This is the bit of information that predicts a reward. It is the spark that ignites the engine. Evolutionarily, these were signs of survival: food, water, safety. In modern America, cues are often notification sounds, the smell of coffee, or the visual of a remote control on the coffee table. The cue triggers the brain to initiate a behavior. 2. The craving, the motivational force. This is the step often overlooked. A cue is meaningless without the interpretation of the observer. You do not crave the cigarette, you crave the relief it provides. You do not crave the phone notification, you crave the social validation it implies. The craving is the spike in dopamine that occurs before the action is taken. 3. The response, the routine. This is the actual habit you perform, which can take the form of a thought or an action. Whether a response occurs depends on how motivated you are, the craving, and how much friction is associated with the behavior. If the effort required is greater than the anticipated reward, the habit will not run. 4. The reward, the satisfaction, the end goal of every habit. The reward serves two purposes. It satisfies the craving, and it teaches the brain which actions are worth remembering in the future. If the reward is pleasurable, the brain releases dopamine, stamping the loop into your neurology. Engineering the loop. The challenge for many is that our environment is often optimized for bad habits, instant gratification, rather than good habits, delayed gratification.
To build positive habits, we must consciously engineer the 4 stages of the loop. A. Make the cue obvious. Implementation intentions. Vague goals like, "I want to work out more," usually fail because they lack a trigger. A study published in the British Journal of Health Psychology found that people who used implementation intentions were significantly more likely to exercise. An implementation intention is a plan you make beforehand about when and where to act. The formula is, when situation X arises, I will perform response Y. Instead of, I will read more, the intention becomes, at 7 a.m., I will sit in my kitchen chair and read for 10 minutes. By specifying the time and location, you remove the decision-making burden from the prefrontal cortex. Habit stacking, leveraging the Diderot effect. The French philosopher Diderot noted how obtaining a new possession often led to a spiral of consumption. We can use this interconnectedness positively. Habit stacking involves identifying a habit you already do each day and stacking a new behavior on top of it. Current habit, I pour my coffee. New habit, after I pour my coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. You're effectively using the strong neural pathway of the old habit as the cue for the new one. Make the response easy, the baby steps method. This is perhaps the most crucial strategy for the American mindset, which often favors all or nothing intensity. We tend to rely on motivation, but motivation is a fickle emotion, not a strategy. Stanford professor B.J. Fogg and author James Clear advocate for the 2-minute rule. The idea is to scale down a habit until it takes less than 2 minutes to do. Read 30 books a year becomes read 1 page. Run a marathon becomes put on my running shoes. The psychology behind baby steps, the goal is not the workout. The goal is becoming the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. You are trying to establish the showing up neural pathway. Once the art of showing up is established, the habit is formed, you can optimize the intensity. You cannot optimize a habit that does not exist. By lowering the friction, the activation energy required to start, you bypass the brain's resistance to difficulty.
D. Identity-based habits. Behavioral change is rarely sustained if it is not accompanied by identity change. Outcome-based, I am trying to quit smoking, implies you are still a smoker trying to do something else. Identity-based, I am not a smoker. When your behavior is incongruent with your identity, you will self-sabotage to return to your baseline. But when you view a habit as a vote for the type of person you wish to be, the motivation becomes intrinsic. Every time you write a page, you are a writer. Every time you refuse a donut, you are a healthy person. 4. Breaking bad habits, inverting the laws. Breaking a habit is structurally different from forming one. You cannot simply delete a neural pathway. You must overwrite it or allow it to atrophy through disuse. To break a bad habit, you must make the loop fail. A. Make the cue invisible. Environment design. Willpower is a muscle that fatigues. People with high self-control tend not to use it more often. They simply arrange their lives so they are tempted less. If you eat cookies because they are on the counter, the visual cue is the driver. Hiding them in a high cupboard removes the cue. If you check your phone because it buzzes, the auditory cue is the driver. Strategy: redesign your environment to remove the triggers. If you want to watch less TV, unplug the TV and put the remote in a drawer. The extra 20 seconds of effort breaks the mindless flow of the habit loop. B. Make the response difficult. Increase friction. Just as we decrease friction for good habits, we must increase it for bad ones. This is called a commitment device, a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. Example: using website blockers that lock you out of social media until 5 p.m. Example: leaving your credit cards at home when you go for a walk to prevent impulse buying. By increasing the number of steps between the impulse and the action, you give your prefrontal cortex time to catch up with your basal ganglia and veto the urge. C. Reframing the reward. Bad habits serve a function.
Smoking reduces stress. Social media alleviates boredom. If you simply stop the behavior without addressing the underlying need, stress, or boredom, you will likely fail. This is why cold turkey often fails. You must substitute the routine while keeping the cue and the reward the same. Cue: feeling stressed at work, 3 p.m. Old routine: eat a candy bar. New routine: take a brisk 5-minute walk or drink tea. Reward: relief from stress. 5. The role of dopamine and prediction error. At the chemical level, habit formation is driven by dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with motivation, learning, and pleasure. Crucially, dopamine is released not just when we experience reward, but when we anticipate it. When a habit is fully formed, the dopamine spike moves from the reward phase to the cue phase. You see the donuts and you feel the surge. This is why the anticipation of a vacation is often happier than the vacation itself. Prediction error. The brain learns through error. Positive prediction error. You try a new coffee shop. It's amazing. Dopamine spikes after the reward. The brain learns, do this again. No prediction error. You go to your usual spot. It's good, as expected. Dopamine spikes at the cue, maintaining the habit. Negative prediction error. You go to the spot and the coffee is cold. Dopamine drops. The neural connection weakens. To break a habit, you can manufacture a negative prediction error by consciously highlighting the negative aspects of the bad habit while you are doing it. If you smoke, force yourself to concentrate deeply on the foul smell and the burning sensation, rather than mindlessly scrolling your phone while smoking. By bringing mindfulness to the bad habit, you disrupt the automaticity and degrade the reward value. 6. Strategies for resilience, the what the hell effect. In the pursuit of better habits, perfectionism is the enemy. Behavioral economists have studied a phenomenon known as the what the hell effect. Imagine you are on a diet. You eat one cookie. A rational response would be, okay, that was 100 calories, I'll stop now. However, many people think, well, I've broken my diet, so what the hell? I might as well eat the whole box. This all-or-nothing mentality destroys progress. The antidote is never miss twice. James Clear proposes that one mistake is an outlier, 2 mistakes is the beginning of a new habit. If you miss a workout, don't spiral. The most important workout is the one after the one you missed. It reestablishes your identity. Conclusion: the compound interest of self-improvement. The study of habits reveals that we are not victims of our biology, but rather the architects of it. The cue, ritual, reward loop is a neutral mechanism. It will automate a gambling addiction just as efficiently as it will automate a morning jog. For the American individual, often bombarded with messages of overnight success and radical transformation, the science of habits offers a quieter, more potent truth. Success is not a singular day of perfect behavior, but the product of daily habits. By using the baby steps method to lower cognitive load, designing our environments to make good cues obvious and bad cues invisible, and leveraging the neurochemistry of dopamine, we can effectively reprogram our lives. The goal is not to have a singular day of perfect behavior, but to harness the power of consistency. As the neural pathways thicken and the myelin sheaths wrap around our axons, the impossible becomes difficult, the difficult becomes easy, and the easy becomes automatic.